Okay, welcome everyone to the deep dive.
Good to be here.
So imagine holding like a tiny metal time capsule in your hand.
Okay.
Something struck, decades and decades ago that actually tells a really specific, fascinating story about America's past.
Right. I think I see where you're going with this. And that's pretty much exactly where we're heading today. We're doing a deep dive into U.S. classic commemorative coins.
And when we say classic, we're talking a very specific time frame here. 1892, right through 1954.
Mm-hmm.
And these weren't just, regular coins meant to rattle around in your pocket. They were actually created by Congress specifically to remember historical events or honor noteworthy people.
Yeah, think of it like the U.S. Mint telling chapters of American history, but using metal coins.
That's a great way to put it.
So to really unpack this colorful period of American numismatics, it's the fancy word for coin study. We've pulled info from places like the American Numismatic Association, grading services like NGC, and pricing guides, Gray Sheet, VCD.
Right. And our mission today is basically to take the most important nuggets from all these sources, give you a shortcut to being well-informed about this really unique series, and maybe surprise you with a few interesting facts along the way.
Sounds good. Ready to dive in.
Let's do it. So first things first, at their core, what are classic commemoratives?
Well, the sources define them pretty simply. Coins minted in remembrance of a specific historic event or, an individual person.
And the key is that time frame, right? That 1892 to 1954 window. They mark something distinct.
Exactly. And here's an interesting point. They are legal tender, technically.
Oh, right. So you could spend them.
You could, yeah. A 50-cent commemorative for 50 cents worth of stuff. But that was never really the point.
They weren't meant for circulation?
No, they were designed to be sold at a premium. You paid more than the face value.
And that extra money, that premium, usually had a purpose, didn't it?
It absolutely did. Often it was used to help fund the very events or fairs or memorials that the coins themselves commemorated.
Ah, okay, so there's a practical angle there, too.
Definitely. And over that whole 62-year period, the series ended up celebrating 53 different events, occasions, or individuals. Quite a few.
And the denominations weren't just half dollars, right? It was a range.
Oh, yeah, quite a range. Everything from a 25-cent piece, the Isabella quarter, all the way up to these huge $50 gold coins.
$50 gold pieces. Wow.
Mm-hmm. But if we focus on the silver issues, which are probably, the most widely collected part,
Okay.
the sources list 144 distinct varieties in total.
Oh, 144.
Yep. That breaks down to 142 different half dollars, one quarter, and $1 coin. So quite a scope for collectors.
Definitely. So where did this whole idea even start? What was the very first one?
It kicks off right at the beginning of that era, 1892. Congress authorized the first U.S. commemorative coin for the world's Columbian Exposition.
Ah, the Chicago World's Fair.
That's the one.
Yeah.
It was held in 1893, but it was celebrating the 400th anniversary of Columbus's voyage back in 1492.
So the coin reflects that timing.
It does. The half dollar they made was originally dated 1892. But because the fair's opening actually got delayed a bit, they also minted it with the date 1893.
Interesting. What's the design like?
It's got Columbus's profile on it and his flagship, the Santa Maria, sailing above two hemispheres. And yeah, like we mentioned, these were sold at the fair, partly to help raise funds for it.
Wasn't there another coin associated with that same fair? Something unusual?
You're thinking of the 1893 Isabella quarter. Good catch.
Right.
Yeah, the Board of Lady Managers at the Expo actually petitioned Congress to get that coin made.
And what was the purpose behind that one?
It was specifically sold to support women's industry contributions showcased at the fair. The design's really striking, too.
How so?
It's got Queen Isabella III of Spain, Columbus's sponsor on one side. And then on the other side, it shows a kneeling woman spinning flax. It's quite a juxtaposition.
And isn't there something historically significant about Queen Isabella being on that coin?
Yes. This is where it gets really interesting, like you said. Our sources point out this was the very first U.S. coin ever to portray an actual woman from history.
Not just like a symbolic figure like Lady Liberty.
Exactly. A real person.
Yeah.
That's a pretty major first for U.S. coinage.
Wow. Okay. Speaking of firsts, the next silver commemorative, the 1900 Lafayette dollar. That one seems to rack up a few, too.
It really does. It also had a very specific purpose.
Which was?
To raise money for an equestrian statue of the Marquis de Lafayette planned for Paris. It was meant as a gift from the American people.
A thank you for his help in the revolution, I assume.
Precisely. And the design reflects that. The obverse, the front, has what they call a Jugget bust. That's George Washington and Lafayette shown together, kind of overlapping.
Okay. And the reverse?
The reverse actually shows the statue of Lafayette on horseback
Yeah.
that the coin was helping to fund.
Huh. Clever.
Yeah.
So what were the firsts associated with this dollar?
Well, first off, it was the first commemorative silver dollar the U.S. ever issued.
Okay. First silver dollar commemorative. Got it.
It was also the first U.S. coin, period, to depict George Washington.
Really? The first time Washington was on a coin?
Yep. Seems surprising, but true for official U.S. coinage at the time. And one more. Lafayette became the first person ever to appear on both sides of a U.S. coin because of the bust on the front and the statue on the back.
That's a lot of firsts packed into one coin. Is it easy to find?
Not particularly. Our sources say it's relatively scarce across all grades, so uncirculated ones especially can be quite valuable.
Good to know. Okay, let's jump forward a bit. 1915, Panama Canal opens. Big deal. Was there a coin for that?
Oh, absolutely. The Panama Pacific International Exposition, held in San Francisco to celebrate the canal opening.
Right, in SF.
And the San Francisco Mint went all out for this one. They struck 4 different commemorative coins.
4?
Yep. A silver $half, and then 3 gold pieces.
Mm.
$1 a quarter eagle, that's $2.50, and maybe the most famous ones, those $50 gold pieces we mentioned earlier.
Okay, let's break those down. The silver $half.
That was very evocative of the location. It shows liberty standing before the Golden Gate.
Ah, representing San Francisco.
Exactly, symbolizing luck, trade, and the boundless resources of the West, as one source puts it.
Nice. What about the gold dollar?
That one's quite different, much starker. It's an image of a canal construction worker. Really captures the labor involved.
And the quarter eagle, the $2.50 gold.
That one's more artistic, I'd say.
Yeah.
It shows Columbia, the female figure representing America,
Right.
riding a hippocampus that's like a mythical seahorse through the canal. She's holding a caduceus, that winged staff.
Usually associated with Mercury, right?
Yeah.
Trade.
Yes, trade, but our sources add another layer. They say it also alludes to the huge medical breakthroughs that happened during the canal construction.
Oh, like controlling malaria and yellow fever.
Precisely, which was absolutely crucial to finishing the canal. So the coin subtly acknowledges that.
That's fascinating detail. And then the big ones, the $50 gold pieces.
Yeah, these were landmarks. The largest gold coins the U.S. Mint had ever issued up to that point.
And didn't they come in 2 shapes?
They did. They struck them in the standard round format, but also in this really unique, dramatic octagonal format. 8 sides.
Why octagonal? Was that symbolic too?
The sources don't specify a deep symbolic reason for the shape itself, other than perhaps echoing assay office ingots or pioneer gold slugs from California's past. It definitely made them stand out.
And the design on those.
They feature Minerva, the Roman goddess of wisdom, along with her owl. This represented ancient wisdom, but also America's growing naval power at the time.
Holding one of those must have felt substantial.
Or incredibly heavy. Definitely impressive coins.
So we've got these really key early issues tied to major world events, big expositions, lots of firsts. What happened after 1915? Did the program sort of settle down?
Quite the opposite, actually. That's when things really started to ramp up.
Yeah.
It entered what one source calls a flurry period. Yeah. We saw many more issues pop up in the 1920s, and then it just exploded in the 1930s.
Exploded how?
Well, can you believe that in just one year, 1936, the Mint issued something like 20 distinct commemorative $half.
20 in a single year. Wow. A collector back then must have had their hands full and their wallet empty.
You can imagine. It was a lot to keep up with.
So with that many coins coming out, what kind of history were they commemorating during this later, busier period?
Oh, it was incredibly diverse. You had all sorts of things. Lots of state centennials, for instance.
Right, yeah.
Like the 1918 Illinois Centennial, which features Abraham Lincoln.
Yeah.
There was the Maine Centennial in 1920, the Alabama Centennial in 1921.
Oh, okay.
And that Alabama coin is actually notable itself.
Mhm.
The first U.S. coin designed by a woman, Laura Garden Fraser.
Oh, that's another great first to remember. What else besides state birthdays?
Well, anniversaries of historical events. You had the Pilgrim Tercentenary coins from 1920 and 21, showing Governor William Bradford and the Mayflower.
Okay, makes sense.
There was the Missouri Centennial, also 21, featuring Daniel Boone.
Mhm.
The Monroe Doctrine Centennial in 1923, showing Presidents James Monroe and John Quincy Adams.
Right.
Even things like the Huguenot Walloon Tercentenary in 1924. And then a big one, the Sesquicentennial of American Independence in 1926.
The 150th anniversary. What was special about that coin besides the event?
This one's famous among collectors. It depicts George Washington alongside President Calvin Coolidge.
Wait, Coolidge. He was president then, a sitting president on a coin.
That's right. Our sources confirm it's the only time a living U.S. president has ever appeared on an official U.S. coin, whether circulating or commemorative.
That is wild. I didn't know that. Definitely an anomaly.
It really is. Breaks a long-standing tradition.
So state centennials, historical anniversaries.
Yeah.
What about memorials or specific places? Did they get coins?
Oh, yeah, plenty of those. You had the Stone Mountain Memorial half-dollar in 1925, depicting Confederate Generals Robert E. Lee and Stonewall Jackson. The Grant Memorial coin in 1922, with Ulysses S. Grant and his birthplace. Coins celebrating specific locations like Fort Vancouver in 1925, or the famous Oregon Trail Memorial half-dollars, which were actually minted over a long period from 1926 to 1939. They show a Conestoga wagon on one side and a Native American standing before a map of the U.S. on the other.
That Oregon Trail one sounds really iconic, with so many different coins issued, especially in that 1930s flurry. Are they all pretty common today? Easy to find?
It's a mix. Many of the silver half-dollars from this later period, especially those from the mid-30s with multiple mint marks and dates, were indeed minted in fairly large quantities.
So you can find them relatively easily.
Yeah, many are quite common, even in nice high grades, what collectors call mint state or MS skin, but not all of them.
Ah, so there are tougher ones from this era, too.
Definitely. Our sources highlight that some issues are relatively scarce, and that adds another layer of challenge and interest for collectors.
Okay, besides the early ones like the Lafayette dollar and the Pam Pack gold pieces, which of these later silver halves are considered the harder ones to track down?
Well, the sources list a few key ones to watch out for, often because of lower mintages or maybe higher collector demand wiping out supply over the years.
Such as?
The 1922 Grant Memorial half-dollar with the small star incused on the obverse. That star variety is scarcer than the plain one.
Okay, Grant with star.
The 1925 Fort Vancouver half is noted as relatively scarce. The 1928 Hawaiian sesquicentennial, commemorating Captain Cook's arrival. That one's tough, too.
Right.
Then you hit this cluster in the mid-1930s, coins like the 1935 Hudson, the 1935 Old Spanish Trail half-dollar, the 1936 Battle of Gettysburg, the 1936 Norfolk Bicentennial, the 1937 Battle of Antietam, and the 1938 New Rochelle half-dollar. Those are all generally considered scarcer issues within the series.
So quite a few to keep an eye out for if you're looking for rarity. Now, this explosion of issues, this flurry, continued right up until 1954. What finally brought the whole classic commemorative series to an end after such a prolific run?
Yeah, it ended rather abruptly. According to our sources, the program was essentially halted, mainly because of growing claims and concerns about financial abuses.
Abuses related to what?
Related to the proceeds from selling the coins. Remember how they were sold at a premium to fund things?
Right, so people were questioning where that money was actually going.
That seems to be the core issue that led Congress to stop authorizing new ones. The very last issues minted under this original classic program were the George Washington Carver Booker T. Washington commemorative half-dollars, which were struck from 1951 up through 1954.
Wow. That's quite an end to a program that, literally put so much American history into people's hands.
It really is.
So for someone listening today who might be interested in collecting these pieces of history, what's the overall picture like in terms of, availability and value?
Well, the first thing is just the incredible variety. That's a huge draw.
Right.
Whether you're fascinated by specific historical events, presidents, states, artwork, expositions, there's almost certainly a classic commemorative coin that fits your interest.
And like you said, many of the silver ones are actually quite easy to get hold of.
Absolutely. Especially many of those half-dollars from the 1920s and 30s. You can often find them readily available, even in really nice mint state MS grades, looking like they just rolled out of the mint press.
But then on the flip side, you have those scarcer ones we just listed and the early rarities. Does that mean the values can vary? A lot.
Ooh, wildly is a good word for it. Seriously. Our sources show catalog values that can range from, maybe $20 or so for a very common issue in a lower grade.
Okay, pretty accessible.
All the way up to hundreds of thousands of dollars for some of the key rarities, like the Pan Pack $50 gold coins in top condition, or perhaps for a complete set of all 144 silver varieties in gem mint state. You sometimes see a catalog value figure like $836,000 mentioned for a complete MS set like that.
Wow. From $20 to potentially almost $1 million for the whole silver set in top shape. That's a staggering range. What are the main things driving such huge differences in value?
Well, it's definitely way more than just the melt value of the silver or gold, though that sets a base.
Right.
Condition or grade is absolutely huge, especially getting into those high mint state grades like MS65, MS66, MS67. Each point jump can mean big money.
Okay, condition is key. What else?
Rarity, of course. Is it a low mintage coin to begin with? Is it a specific variety like that Grant with star that's much harder to find? Availability is related. How often does a particular coin actually come up for sale?
Makes sense.
And then there's something collectors call eye appeal. Is it a sharply struck coin? Does it have attractive original surfaces, maybe nice toning? Or is it kind of dinged up or poorly struck?
So the aesthetics matter too. And I guess overall, market demand plays a part.
Absolutely. How popular is this series overall, or a specific issue within it? How frequently are these coins trading hands? And yes, while they sell for well above melt, the underlying precious metal spot prices can have some influence, particularly on the more common silver issues in lower grades. But remember, these are collector coins sold at a premium.
It really sounds like if you're going to buy these, you need to do your homework, check multiple sources for pricing.
Definitely. Our sources really emphasize that. Look at guides like Graysheet, check recent auction results, see what grading services like NGC list for values. Prices can fluctuate based on the market, so getting multiple data points is smart.
Okay. Looking back at this whole series then, from 1892 to 1954, these classic commemoratives really are quite remarkable, aren't they?
They truly are. Like you said at the start, tiny time capsules.
Little snapshots capturing everything from these massive international expositions and world-changing engineering feats like the Panama Canal, down to celebrating a state centennial or honoring specific individuals or remembering key battles.
It's such a unique period where the U.S. government explicitly used its coinage as a way to document and celebrate its own story.
Yeah, and we've seen how it started with those big, iconic fair coins,
Right.
moved into that much more diverse, sometimes chaotic flurry period with dozens of issues.
Yeah, the explosion in the 30s.
And then how it ultimately ended, kind of under a cloud of controversy regarding the funds.
Exactly.
We've touched on some really incredible designs, the stories behind them, that interesting concept of legal tender sold at a premium for a specific purpose, and how collecting them today means navigating this world of huge variety, common coins mixed with significant rarities, and these dramatic value differences based on the specific coin, and crucially, its condition.
So, considering all that history we just talked about, especially the fact that these coins were often sold at a premium, specifically to fund the events for memorials they depicted.
Right.
And remembering that the whole series eventually ended because of claims of financial issues related to those very funds. Here's maybe a provocative thought for you, the listener, to take away.
Okay.
Does the original purpose behind a coin's issuance, the historical reason it was created, beyond just being money or a piece of metal, does that purpose make it more, or maybe less, historically valuable to you personally, regardless of what the price guides say?
That's interesting. Does the why behind the coin change its historical weight for you?
Yeah. Something to ponder as you think about these incredible story-filled pieces of American history.